That work?
She was recording without our permission before, right, Mike?
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
That,
Now she's recording with our permission.
now we
Okay.
with it. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for letting me know that. Okay, so here's what's going on today. We're once again, it's not too heavy of an agenda, partly because John's been out talking to the different GSAs, and I think that's probably helped with that. We have a quick communications update. We've made a transition on the website. I'll let Mike talk about that. And also, the team has been out on the ground meeting with people. We have had things going on with the county drought task force as well as the domestic well advisory committee. We'll get a quick report on that. Just some basic updates on what's going on with budgeting and that sort of thing. I think you all wanted to hear a little bit about any changes that have been made to the annual report since it was presented to you during your meetings, and how it is that we're planning to move forward with a 5-year evaluation. Then we'll also take a look at your schedule for the coming year. We do leave time open. There's Q&A in all of these. This is a relatively informal meeting. So if you're attending and you're not a member of the group, it's still fine. Just raise your hand. There will be opportunities for you to participate in throughout the meeting. But we did leave a little bit of time at the end for anyone that wanted to say something that didn't have a chance to do so yet. Closing comments, we'll ask the members to do that and then just head out into the sunset. But I do imagine we'll be able to end at a reasonable time today. So with that, let me go ahead and just turn this over to Mike. And Mike, do you want to give an update on what's going on with the website?
Yeah, just real simply, been transitioning the Reds website over from being ran by one of the contractors to OHWD. So we're just getting that set up and going. It's pretty simple. We just have, like major meeting notices. We do have the GSP on there. We will be posting the annual update to the website also. So we are, there's not really, it has the same address, it has the same information as the previous website. It just doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but it still is workable. I think the main thing is that it has all of our contact information for all the GSAs. So if there's people out there that are looking to, get a hold of the GSA, they can go to that website and then click on that and get into the GSA. So just keeping it up to date and moving forward. I still have to add some things to it, but it is up and going, and we'll add pages as we get more information to add to it. So that's about it.
Thanks, Mike. It's the same link as before, so we don't need to change anything in terms of the paperwork or anything like that. If people have suggestions or ideas, if you wouldn't mind to get back to Mike about that. But thanks, Mike, for taking that on. That's a nice budget saver for the group. John, do you want to talk a little bit about all the meetings that you've been to?
Yeah, so we heard some comments last year. I think that people wanted more ability for public comment on the annual report, and I think we found a happy medium. We didn't have a specific annual report meeting broadly open to the public. We did, though, on 3 separate occasions at GSA board meetings, which are public meetings. Go through that report. One February 14th in the morning, we had the SCGA. February 14th in the afternoon, we were out at Sloughhouse and did that. And then March 19th in the morning, we did Omochumne-Hartnell Water District. So I think, in light of the lack of any explicit DWR requirements for specific outreach on the annual report, and I think the opportunities of the public meetings of GSAs, I think we found a good place to actually present that. We got mostly positive comments on the report. We did get one set of written comments, which we've addressed in the final, which will be submitted any day now, probably tomorrow or the next day, due April 1st.
Great, thank you. Any questions, comments? input that you'd like to add? Go ahead, Suzanne.
Yeah, John. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's
Sorry.
yeah, Suzanne first, and then am I going to you, Todd, after that?
So I understand that the updates were done at the GSA meetings and that would suffice for the public knowledge of the update. But I have to say that not that many public members attend the GSA meetings or even, are in that loop at all. I may have been the only public member at the OH meeting, and I didn't go to the Sloughhouse. So anyway, I'm just saying that I understand that the regulations don't require public outreach on the update, but again, I think GSA meetings are a little bit weak as far as public knowledge and participation. Thank you.
Thank you. Todd, were you in the queue or?
Yeah, I just had a question for John. I know at the SCGA meeting, Ecos was talking about maybe having you meet with them separate, or to talk to them, or present to them or something. Or did I misinterpret that?
Yeah, we actually did have a meeting with a couple of the Ecos reps, facilitated by the Waterform staff. And again, the annual report is really, it's not a decision-making document. It's not even really significantly interpretive, other than reporting results. So, I think as we head into the 5-year evaluation of the GSP is going to be the time we really need to ramp up our public outreach significantly.
Go ahead, Chris.
There, just real quick, wanted to ride John's coattails. We have heard stakeholders, including Ecos's strong request for more of a public engagement forum. And as John said, working through the Waterform staff, seems like we landed on a place where Ecos and other stakeholders, we'd like to sort of hold a annual stakeholder groundwater workshop concept, if you will. That would occur in fall of this year and probably years thereafter.
Great, thanks, Chris. Go ahead, Suzanne.
So I think that's a really good idea, Chris. And I do think that even though the update doesn't require public outreach gets the domestic well community engaged and involved, which is what it's going to have to be in order to address drought resiliency, which the county is working on and which our task force is working on. So I think every opportunity that can be made available to meet with the public and to engage them will be very, very helpful. I mean, this is not, this is going to go on for, many, many years. And I just think that if we could have something even similar to what Chris is talking about for the environmental community, I think that would be great. Thanks.
Thank you. Austin, do you want to just recap a little bit of what you put in the chat?
Sure. Last summer, after the annual reports were developed and submitted, I know Trevor, John, I each presented to Ecos, kind of recapping the annual reports. Thought that was a great way to share the information that was collected through that process. Perhaps the 3 subbasins could team up for one meeting. I think probably the Ecos group got tired of hearing the Sigma intro each time, but recapping the results of the subbasins would be fantastic.
Thank you, Austin. John, Lynn does not have a mic, so I'm going to read her question. Is there a consideration to involve the cities in an annual update or, for example, an update at city council meetings?
We haven't. I can't say we've really given that any thought. The cities have a representative on the SCGA board, so I kind of take the cue from the city reps on the board on the appropriateness of a broader outreach to the city or the city council.
Okay, Dahlia? Dahlia?
Yeah, sorry. I was trying to unmute. Yeah, just to piggyback off of what John said, typically is the other way around. If we get a request from one of our council members or our city manager to provide an update, then we do reach out and request for that update. And sometimes it's so specific, like maybe just around, the drought or how we're addressing the drought or something like that. So I think it's typically the cities reach out and ask for that additional outreach.
Great, well, thank you. All right, is there anything else on this item? We'll go ahead and go to the next item then. There's been some things going on with the County Drought Task Force and the Domestic Well Advisory Committee. Chris, do you want to start off a bit with what's going on with the Drought Task Force?
Hi there. Sure, thanks for the intro. Really important items moving forward. As most folks on the call know, Senate Bill 552 is the legal tool that is requiring counties to create a drought task force, and then that group is responsible for drafting and adopting a drought response plan. Right now, we are very lucky to have support from Stantec. Khalid and Michael are the support staff that are helping put together that document that will be brought to the larger team here, I believe in the next month or two. Where we're at right now is we are looking at essentially an assessment tool, a risk assessment tool, using some sophisticated, on the back end GIS evaluation tools, creates a heat map, integrates things such as uses a Kasana model, looks at various groundwater levels, looks at environmental and DAX. And at the end of it, kind of shows you where those hot spots are located. Of the 5 reported dry wells, I want to say it was last year, I believe they were all in the Omochumne-Hartnell Subbasin. Where we're at the moment is we've developed a draft of short-term mitigation and long-term resiliency strategies that the core engagement team is working through. Hope to have that out to the group in the next month.
Thank you. Are there any questions to Chris about this? Go ahead, Barbara.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, for the update. Can you tell us how the GSAs are going to be woven into the findings of the committee?
Great question. I don't have a happy answer for you at the moment, something that we're still working through. Currently, I'm sort of that touch point, if you will, just being the county groundwater point of contact. But to your point, we'd like to, as we get kind of closer to the narrowing in of what that drought response plans look like, I envision that is an item that will be on each of the board's agenda to sort of give them some updates. Might be a 15-minute Q&A type thing.
Great. Go ahead. Barbara, did you have more?
I have a follow-up. Thanks, Chris. So without knowing what is being considered, are there items that would require funding that you would be looking to the GSAs to provide that we should be taking into account for the planning and the financial responsibilities?
Those are great questions as always. In terms of the short-term response, we're talking about bottled water, hauled water, those types of things. They're not slated for the GSAs necessarily to fund. I think some of the long-term actions, there needs to be a broader discussion at the GSA level. And part of that is something that I think you're probably aware of, Suzanne, on the eco side of the house. We're working with the Environmental Management Department, the Well Permitting Agency, to look at really building out their well ordinance. I think realistically, that's a 2025 action. And in that ordinance update, I'm going to strongly request, and hopefully some of the folks on this phone call as well, that they integrate some of the executive order requirements, sort of a GSA consultation process. Perhaps there's room for, minimum well depths, those types of things. I know they can be a little controversial, but those are things that we're going to have to look at as, we look at the sustainability of our subbasins moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Suzanne, did you want to add something?
Yes, just quickly. I think it's important to weave the GSAs in, like as you're discussing, but I think that we need to start, or the county needs to start weaving in the discussion with the members of the public in the domestic well community. I'm sure that everybody has not heard about the concept of bottled water and community well. And, I think that has to be a discussion that maybe the county makes. I mean, we haven't brought it up much as, what SB 552 is, what that regulation is involving. So, it would be good to start the conversation with the public also, I think, at the same time, so that they have a heads up on this. I mean, everybody's thinking about well protection and lowering wells, but this is not what drought resiliency SB 552 is actually about. It's more of an emergency measure and resiliency and regrouping after a drought. So maybe the county could help coordinate some of that also, because there is no funding. There is no funding in this program for outreach, by me or payment by, to anybody.
Suzanne, and very good feedback. I'll certainly bring that to our leadership and then also to the drought task force. I don't want to hold up the presentation, but those are very good points. And I think there's more room for integrating the GSA's outreach and engagement efforts. Both your and Barbara's points are well taken. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. We asked Todd if he wouldn't mind doing a recap of the meeting that the Domestic Well Advisory Committee had. So I'm going to just go ahead and turn this over to Todd. And Todd, do you want me to do slides?
Yeah, that'd be good. Thank you.
So here are the members of the group. And you met on the 30th. So there we go.
Yeah, so we basically kind of got an update of where we are on the well monitoring first. There was about, 25 to 30 people on the well monitoring, and the data has come in. There are some few questions that I would have for maybe Carl or a few people that were on the list that maybe aren't on the list anymore. I think we have maybe 15 or 20 people that have gotten some good fall and spring data consistently out of that group. And so I wanted to kind of maybe follow up with a few key people to make sure we're getting the data of the ones we really want to. I talked to John a little bit about that today and trying to figure out how this data folds into or will be able to be used on the model. Some of the things that were brought up is making sure we have release of liability on getting onto property as well as use of data. And so making sure that we're all covered on that side. And it really was trying to get our data kind of into the overall model to see how things are really looking. Basically allow our domestic well data folks to have input into what's going on to the SANA model. Other discussions that were had were, how do you have a well protection program? You can't cover for everything. Let's say somebody they drilled their well to 90 feet and, they didn't drill it very far, or there's poor maintenance. There's different things that could go on that might be not something that anyone would be willing to pony money up for. There was concern or questions about other SCGA agencies to say, it's not necessarily a requirement for folks to put money aside for a well protection program that basically are paying rates to have access to water every month. And so it's kind of a balance between what is a lowering groundwater table, who's the person that might be the cause of it, and how is that going to be balanced. So there was kind of a back and forth discussion on how to determine how any of those costs would be paid for and where that money would come from. I think ideally we had it in our grant that would allow us to have some money set aside, which I think really that'd be the best way, but that didn't really happen. So that was a discussion there. So what is on the next slide? Is there something on there? I can't remember.
So these were some ideas you had about ways you could support engagement and outreach.
Yeah, I didn't put those slides together, so I'm trying to figure out what this one was on.
Okay. I don't know if Atlee, do you want to mention any of these? I know you were with the group.
Yeah, so just a few concepts that we kind of talked through on the 30th. One is around the communications piece of maintenance and highlighting the importance of that. So being able to guide domestic well owners and continue that conversation to have more of that proactive approach to well management. And then continuing to promote the dry well reporting system on the state's website. And then again, that idea of proactive as opposed to reactive and kind of getting ahead of the ball. So how can the domestic well group promote these ideas, engage with the community? And these were some of the ideas that we talked through, the venues that we could use, whether that be events, newsletters, and or it was brought up focus groups, being able to pull small groups of the community together to have those conversations.
Yeah, thank you. Did any other members of the group want to? Go ahead, Suzanne.
So I'm trying to link what I'm doing on the drought resiliency task force and hopefully what the county is doing with Chris, and trying to really build into, the concept of bottled water and community wells, in case of emergency, but I'm trying to build in a resiliency factor in what I'm writing. So it makes it very difficult. But part of the resiliency factor is really a good monitoring network of domestic wells and really engagement by the public so that they're really all in on the whole problem. They understand the scope of where all of us are and what what everybody's responsibility in this is, and the fact that there is no, the grant funding is going to become very, very difficult to obtain. So I'm hoping that maybe in our domestic well advisory group that the members will start giving me some ideas of what they're thinking of in terms of a well protection program. I know that was one of the questions that was asked of the group, and nobody had any ideas or any concepts, but it would be very helpful to me in bringing this forward in this committee, because the committee I'm on is exactly what we're trying to address it statewide as we're trying to address it locally. So we really need to get some thinking about, not so much a nanny state, but how everybody can, productively think about this and come up with solutions that are reasonable for each subbasin. Every subbasin in California is going to have a different issue, but I think we have to get more all in on this and with more thinking on it. I know that the question was floated out, how about coordinating with Omochumne-Hartnell Water District on the monitoring network? And Barbara Washburn is on the committee. We both thought that could be a good idea. OH is local. They have good recharge projects. So I think some of these things where we can work together as a community are things we're really going to have to start working on in order to develop this resiliency in the shallower aquifers. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Mark Streeters, did you want to add anything?
Not offhand, I get my name spelled right on the list.
Oh no! How did that
Other than
happen?
that, I've just been listening here. Again, it's trying to getting a balance. And I know Todd and I were just talking today. I had a discussion with him on how or didn't discussion, but he'd asked for some addresses and information on some of the information I had submitted. And I was kind of keying back to what Carl had indicated. He'd kind of created a coding for it so that we don't have to be quite so concerned about the location or the privacy matters of these owners by just using their street address number and nothing else when we report the data. we would have that data in a central thing, but it's not out there, or somebody gets a hold of it, they would not know what the 4 or 5 digit number means or where it's even located in the county. So it gives some privacy to the owners, which I thought was a good idea on his part. And so that's kind of what we've gone to in some of that stuff. And it's a matter of, I was asking Todd today, and in responding back to him, I said, you know, is there any additional information we need? I noticed in the Consumers Basin that they had asked for air temperature at the time they took it. They were asking for a kind of an evaluation of, you know, what the well looked like and what the surrounding area was. And I forgot one other thing that was kind of key. Oh, they were talking about whether you could get through the gates and whether they had access to this type of thing. And so I thought those were something, I don't know, we need that type of deep data to be able to present it, some information to COSAMA, or whether the information we're simply giving them basically a location, a depth to water, a depth, or not a depth, but a level difference between that and sea level, and then the date of when it happened as being the primary ones. But I don't know, the other information, is that, John, from your standpoint, is that relevant or something we might need down the road or not? You know, just kind of some of this extraneous information.
Yeah, well, you know, as far as the the access information, I mean, we're not really there yet. We're doing this
Right.
voluntarily. You know, if at some point some of these wells became part of the monitoring network and were incorporated in that monitoring, then we need to worry about access agreements. And yeah, I mean, it really, what we ultimately need is groundwater elevation, which is what you said.
Right.
It's just ground surface elevation minus the depth of water. Probably the most significant thing is recent pumping,
Yeah.
and because that, you know, that can affect the well itself locally, as far as, you know, if it's been turned off and the well hasn't pumped all night and it's taken in the morning, get a much different reading than if it's been recently pumped. But I think, you know, what we want to get to is get some kind of agreement in place, just to be able to get the data, look at it, and then start to look at, okay, so what if any of this data should really be incorporated up to the higher level of the monitoring network, and
Right.
kind of fill in some gaps if we have them on domestic well water levels in those domestic well areas.
Okay. That sounds good. That's kind of what I had indicated to Todd. So I think we're starting to get that symbol now. Isn't that right, Todd?
He's muted. Go ahead, Todd.
We lost
Yeah.
him.
No, I'm on this grant line where Verizon stinks. So I got about half of that. If there was a specific question for me, I didn't catch it.
He basically just wanted you to agree with everything he said, which I'm sure you're fine doing.
That sounds wonderful. I did hear that his name was spelled wrong, so I'll agree with that one.
I'm like horrified by that. I don't even know how many times we look at these slides and we didn't catch that. I'm just beside myself about that.
It's no problem.
Okay, well, it is, but that's a different that's a different issue. Austin, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, John had touched on it. For this voluntary effort, the information that I think we need at baseline is real simple. But I think maybe what Mark was alluding to was like monitoring protocol standards that DWR suggests to just reduce error in data collection. You know, making sure that anybody can go out there, follow the same protocol, and get the same reading kind of concept. And that's the ideal standard. That's going to always be, I think, the ideal standard. But until then, anything is better than nothing.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're probably good to move on. John, do you want to just give, I'm trying to get these slides to move. Do you want to give a quick update on where we're at with the budget and the account?
Yeah, and the executive committee looked at the budget in our fall meeting, and we maintained the subbasin-wide budget at 225,000 among the 5 GSAs. this year as it was in the past year. We still the SCJ finance people wanted the SCJ board to actually take an action approving sending out those invoices. And then we didn't have a quorum at our February meeting. And so invoices haven't gone out yet, but we did, this committee looked at that budget in their fall meeting. I think we'll talk about the 5-year evaluation, some of the work upcoming and the need likely, we don't have a number yet, but I think our need for consultant work is going to ramp up in probably 2025, 2026 for our 5-year evaluation.
I had Brian down for this. I'm not sure is that the case or is that something you're doing, John? Just the feedback on any changes that were made since the
Yeah, I think as I said, we only really got one set of comments. A lot of those were good suggestions for clarity. I think probably the most significant thing, if I can share my screen.
Yes.
So we got a comment. We got a comment that this figure that represents the water budget is confusing and in some cases not labeled well. So we did, we didn't overhaul it and present it differently, but we did at least change some of the labeling. So we clearly, and some of these bars are so small that you can't see them at this scale, but we clearly, have the inflows across the Sacramento, the inflows from the Omochumne Subbasin, the inflows from the North American, and again, everything's either a positive below the or a negative below the zero line or positive above. So this inflow from NASB is negative. So that means really there's a flow from South American towards the North American. And then the groundwater storage depletion is a little confusing, but the orange is really what we're solving for, and that's really the change in storage. So you can see the depletion is on the negative side, which means a negative of negative means there was an increase in storage, and then the black line also represents cumulative storage. So you can see in a year like 2021, we had significant depletion above the zero line and a declining groundwater storage. In 2023, we had, I forget what, I think it was on the order of 50,000 acre feet of water added to storage over the course of the year. So hopefully this is a little more intuitive now. I think we'll look at whether there's even a better way to present this, I think, as we go forward.
Do any of the members have feedback?
And then, of course, the report's ready to be submitted to DWR probably tomorrow. I think that'll get done.
Go ahead, Barbara.
Thanks, John, for clarifying that. I found that particularly confusing for some reason. When you say that the report's going to be ready to go tomorrow, does that mean it'll be posted soon so we can all see it?
Yeah, it'll get submitted to DWR. It'll be on the DWR GSP portal. We can Mike, you can probably post that on our SASb webpage as well.
What I can do is, the minute we have a link, I can send that out to everybody so that you all have it. Okay. Anybody else? Thank you, Suzanne, for your note in the chat. Okay, so why don't we go to the next item, which was the evaluation, and I'll go ahead and do you want me? I'll show my screen.
Yeah, go ahead and go back to the slide.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, you want to go forward one slide?
That one?
So, probably as everybody's aware, we're required every 5 years to do an evaluation of our GSP. And, I think over time, people got kind of sloppy with the language, and we started referring to this as a GSP update. And really, the law does not say a GSP update. It says a periodic evaluation. So, the scope of those two things, just based on terminology, could potentially be different. That said, if we make significant changes, we potentially also have to then now readopt an amended GSP, depending on the amount of change. But DWR came out in the fall with a guide to periodic evaluations and plan amendments. If you go to the next slide, there's some objectives they identify for periodic evaluation. One, just fundamentally, are you meeting the sustainability goal? Comparing your groundwater conditions over that 5-year period to your sustainable management criteria. Progress in implementing the projects and management actions. A comprehensive assessment of monitoring networks, and then just discussion of any topics that may have changed. So in a sense, a lot of this are the same kinds of things we do on the annual report, but just a deeper dive, and I think potentially with some changes to the GSP and fundamental changes to the monitoring network might take place, potentially changes to the sustainable management criteria. The next slide. So Brian Thorson worked through, looked at the guidance for periodic evaluations, looked at our GSP and things that we knew were gaps when we did the GSP, and then looked at our review memo from DWR and kind of laid out a set of tasks that we'll need to accomplish over the next, roughly 2.5 years to meet the deadline for January 27, 2027. And phase one is really, we're looking at this maybe as things we need to do before we start into the GSP evaluation proper. We know we've got some data gaps that were identified in the GSP. We've got to do some level of assessing the COSANA model based on new information that we've collected over the past years since the GSP was submitted. And then also start diving into the corrective actions that DWR identified for us in our review. And then phase two, which really will be most of 2026, will be the GSP periodic evaluation proper. And if we can go to the next slide. So the phase one work includes things that were identified in the GSP, like 1.1. We have monitoring points in wells that we don't know the depth of. We don't know the screened intervals. We've got to try and see if we can get that information from some downhole work. We have some representative monitoring points with limited historical data. So with additional data, we can take a new look at how we set the minimum thresholds. We had identified that we were going to install a stream gauge, another stream gauge on the Cosumnes. And again, that was part of our grant request that didn't get funded. So we'll have to figure out how we'll get that done. And then some additional work around climate change. And then I think we definitely have a water quality monitoring gap in the area down around where the Harvest Water Project will be. So we're going to be looking at the harvest water monitoring and figuring out how that can be worked in. And then finally around COSANA, we had, I think we scoped something on the order of $900,000 worth of COSANA work in our grant request. So I think model update, model recalibration is probably not on our agenda for the 5-year evaluation at this point without the funding to do that. I think probably this will be a lean and mean evaluation. And then finally, our corrective actions. There was a suggestion by DWR that we needed to add arsenic to our water quality network. We're already looking at our data points to assess whether those wells have arsenic data. There was some discussion in our corrective actions around subsidence and how we characterize that. And I think that's really more clarification than it is. There's additional work to be done. And then maybe the most significant, we're expecting guidance from DWR on assessing interconnected surface waters. Till we get that guidance, I think it's a little premature to jump in on how we're going to do evaluation. And you can see this work is really targeted at the remainder of 2024 and then into 2025. And then if we go to the next slide, the phase 2 work, where we really get into comprehensively assessing evaluating our GSP based on all the new information, will really take us through 2026. And I guess a question that I'd like to hear feedback from the executive committee, as the representatives of the GSAs, is around. Well, we'll have discussions about how much money we need in addition to our standard budget, but I think some direction around getting the work done. And I think we've had a good consultant team with Woodard and Kern, Larry Walker Associates, and then the GI staff that are staffed to SCGA in getting the GSP done and getting the annual reports done. I think the most time efficient way to get this work done would be to get those teams together, scope it, and then find the money to just amend contracts for those same consultants going forward. Alternatively, we could go out for an RFP on our 5-year evaluation and get proposals from consultants. We might get new thinking that might be beneficial. We might get potentially lower cost, but hard to say that. So I guess that's one question. If anybody has any feedback as as board members of these GSAs on approach to contracting for consultants to get the work done. Excuse me.
Okay, well, let's go ahead. John is requesting feedback. Let me go to Eric.
Sure. This is Eric Ringelberg for the Northern Delta GSA. I think my board has concerns about cost control, and either of those two approaches could yield the same high quality product. But we want to make sure that we understand kind of what the consultant scopes are, specifically what the deliverables are. I think this helps in terms of timeline that you've identified here, but we'd like to know what the relative efforts and expectations are. We're not in a financial position to be able to effectively support cost overruns, so it's important for us to know up front what the potential risks are for the funding.
Yeah, Eric, hey, I think that's probably that's true for all the GSAs, and I think we're going to try and scope this thing to do the maybe not the minimum, but close to the minimum that we can stay in compliance and satisfy DWR. We're only 5 years in. We haven't seen any significant negative impacts, so I think we've got some breathing room to work within our budget this time, and then figure out, as we get on to 10 years, are there things that we should be doing, and where do we come up with the money for it?
Okay. Anybody else on the committee that would like, the executive committee that would like to weigh in on this or give John some feedback? Okay.
I mean, my only little is I agree. You know, I mean, 552, everything that comes down, it's all unfunded mandates. So it's not going to get cheaper to do all the new laws. So the more effective, efficient, streamline, whatever we can do, the better. So I agree with the approach.
John, do you want to mention the conversations you've been having with North American Subbasin?
Well, yeah, you know, the North American Subbasin's in a little bit different place. They did get grant funding to support their 5-year evaluation. And the interesting thing there is they have the money, but the term of the grant means they're going to have to accelerate, and you know, they're going to be looking at 2025 as the key year they're doing all this work. So, you know, they're not only doing it out ahead of us, they also have the funding. I think the funding that they have for work on the COSANA model will, you know, it should at least inform us as the quality and accuracy of COSANA in the North American, and may inform us as we go to our 2032 update on the need for significant additional modeling work. But you know, unfortunately, we submitted COSUMNA, South American, North American, all submitted grant requests, and we all had money built in for COSANA update, but only the North American section of that has the funds to go forward.
Okay. Anybody else on the committee with questions about the next steps on this? Go ahead, Barbara.
Yeah, thanks. I put it in the chat, but John, on task 10, you rolled a couple of things into that that task. If we could go to that slide. It says outreach, engagement, and coordination with other agencies. So, you know, you've heard, obviously, all the GSAs have heard the concerns that have been raised about public input and public review. So can you describe what you envision those 3 blocks spread out over time? What part of that is public outreach and review of the
Yeah,
document?
you know, we put three blocks in there for maybe significant public meetings on the GSP evaluation. One up front early in 2026 when we can roll out the scope and get people's input. I could envision that we would potentially have something though similar to the working group we had when we did the GSP, where it's a focus group, probably grows out of this executive committee that has open public meetings, but the purpose really is for those providing direction on the update. So I think it'll look similar to what we did during GSP development as far as specific public outreach and then working meetings that are open to the public to participate.
As we go along, I realize this is still fairly far out, but as we go along, it would be useful for those in the public that are watching the activities to see more specifically where they slot in. So thanks.
Yep. Okay.
Great.
And maybe this is for our SCGA meeting, but John, why is everybody else getting grant money but us? Goodness gracious.
Yeah, we were.
That was supposed to be a joke. I guess I didn't come up with a joke.
I'm not happy. I'm not happy about that, and I'm not going to throw Mike Wakeman under the bus, who had. But you know, there was about one quarter of the request for grants got funded by DWR. There's about 180 million of grant funding available, and there was over 700 million of requests. So there's a lot of people out there who don't have the funding for this evaluation process. Like, you know, nearly everybody who wanted a grant had a grant for GSP development. Now we're looking at a lot of people that are going to have to scrape by.
Dominic, do you have any insight to offer on any of this?
Yeah, as far as the grant, no, but yeah, I guess a few updates since last time I spoke at your board meeting.
And Dominic,
I found.
the whole group
Can you hear me?
yeah, the whole group may not know you. Do you mind introducing yourself?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so my name is Dominic Gutierrez. I'm an engineer with the Department of Water Resources. I'm in our North Central Region office, and I am SCGA's Sigma point of contact. So anything Sigma, any of the board members can reach out to me, which they know, but also the public if they have any questions about the DWR side of things. And if you just Google DWR points of contact, you'll be able to find maps that have my contact info. And if you're interested in other subbasins, contact info for those points of contact as well. But yeah, so since last time I presented, I did talk about our guidance on interconnected surface water. What I found out subsequently is that we actually had a bit of a delay. And so it's not pushing the end release date for the last paper. And we have released one paper, but the second paper, I'm not exactly sure when now, but basically the data has slipped. So it still will come out sometime this summer, but it's a bit later than was intended. And we're still on track for that third and final paper to come out in the fall of this year. And then as this is a bit premature, but when it comes to the 5-year update, we will be meeting to discuss our recommended corrective actions and answer any questions, things like that, with every single subbasin. So again, a bit premature to talk about scheduling that and all that, but when that when the time's appropriate, I will be reaching out to John to schedule that. So yeah.
Thanks, Dominic. That's really helpful, and that's that's something I think that we heard from Paul Goslin, from the top late last year, that now that all the GSPs were submitted, all were reviewed, that DW is gonna shift a little bit and maybe be a little more interactive with basins as we go forward. And I think the benefit of that is, with a limited budget for us to do this evaluation work, the more we can get on the same page with DWR on what's priorities and what maybe lesser priority is going to be helpful.
Right. I think that's totally correct. And like hearing your conversation about budgeting and priorities, I'm also a point of contact in some other basins, and it's definitely very familiar. I think a lot of people throughout the state are in a similar position. So I'll leave it at that. But if anybody on the board or the committee has any questions, I'm here. So I'll just chime in as appropriate if you have a question.
Thanks, Dominic. Barbara?
Thanks, Dominic. Obviously, a lot of us are concerned with that big blank spot on the schedule, waiting for the interconnected surface water information. And perhaps I just have not read enough, but can you describe what is going to be in paper 2 versus paper 3? The first one was very high level overview of the general connections between surface and groundwater. And are all the things we're waiting for going to be in the third paper, or can you sort of break down what to expect in the second versus third so we can get going on some of these issues?
Yeah, give me a second. I'm going to pull up a link and drop it in the chat. So maybe if you continue the discussion, and then I'll raise my hand.
Okay.
I just want to make sure I get this right when I respond to your question.
Thanks, Dominic. And then Atlee's also put paper 1 in the link for people if you.
Okay, I'm going to get out from.
Great. Thank you.
I'm going to leave.
Okay, bye.
Okay. So Suzanne, I saw your hand kind of popping up and going down. I wasn't sure if you wanted to talk.
Yes, I have a comment because I keep tying it back into what I'm trying to accomplish. And I think there's a message in not getting in grant funding, and maybe the message is that all of us need to become less reliant on grants and maybe more creative in working amongst ourselves in subbasins, more partnering. I know that's been a a large part of the discussion that we've been having in our group is the need to partner with other groups that have similar water use goals. And, you know, I keep looking at where I live. I live in the Deer Creek watershed. You know, this is a prime area for looking at, you know, monitoring, looking at the interconnection of Consumnes River with, you know, the watershed area. And I really think that that it could tie into the monitoring of domestic wells, and also serve the purpose of looking at the interconnection, you know, of surface water. So I think we just need to get more creative in this and not keep waiting to write a grant and somebody else fund it. I think we need to start looking to each other for some of these solutions.
You know, I'd like to jump in here to remind everybody there's a lot of stuff we're doing in the Consumnes River already. We got DWR to do a huge commitment on modeling on our EcoFit project. I mean, that's you know, I think it was like ending up like being $500,000 along the Consumnes River, looking at floodplain inundation, looking at, you know, benefits to groundwater recharge in the area. And that study goes, you know, clear up from past Jackson all the way to Twin Cities Road. So it's not like we're not doing any of this. So I want to, like Chris just put it, it's up to 750,000. So, you know, we are partnering with other agencies. We are looking to reach out. We're partnering with Freshwater Trust. Eric's on the call here. Omochumne is doing partnerships with them with groundwater recharge and stuff there. So we are definitely looking out, you know, looking for a partnership, definitely reaching out to others, working with the Consumnes Coalition. So there's a lot of us who are looking at multiple angles, realizing that, you know, grant funding from DWR is going to get even worse now with the budget crisis. But, you know, trying to take advantage of those areas that we are having. So just want to remind people there is a lot of going on out there and that we're not just sitting back and not doing stuff. So thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks. So did you want to add to that, Suzanne?
Yeah, I just wanted to say maybe extend that partnership and not partnering out to the public domestic well owners. I mean, I guess that was my point. A lot of us have retention basins on our parcels. I know I've talked to Mark Streeters about how much water my lot takes in 2023 during that event. I mean, how much recharge there was on these parcels along Deer Creek, how long Deer Creek actually stayed on many of the parcels into spring. So I think that, you know, you could maybe bring the public in on this a little more, domestic well owners, and get them involved. I mean, I'm talking about more involvement than just public agencies. Thank you.
Okay, well, that sounds like a good agenda item for your next domestic well advisory group as well. So let's go ahead then. And I think we're still waiting on Dominic, but we'll go ahead and move into the next item, which is the future meetings. So, oh, there's Dominic. Go ahead, Dominic.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so I put a link in the chat that will have the location of all the interconnected surface water guidance. I just cannot remember off the top of my head what's in that second paper. I know it was a bit technical in nature. But anywho, our internal documents after the schedule changed, I guess they deleted off our server. So and I just don't want to rely on my memory to have the specifics. So I'll follow up with John with more information once I find it. But right now, I apologize. I'm unable to find that file with all the information on that.
That's okay.
Dominic, I came across a file from the DWR website, but I don't know if it's linked on that same page, saying that paper 2 is approaches for estimating depletions, and paper 3 is examples of estimating depletions.
Awesome. Yeah, so apologies for not finding that myself in our internal database. I should have thought to check our website as well. But yeah, that's exactly right. So again, I don't know what the new schedule is because nobody does. We're waiting to hear from our team working on that. But I do know that they want to make sure it's rigorous and sound before they release it.
Thanks. All right. John, next meeting.
Is this my topic? Thought this was your topic.
Oh, I can. Your name is on my list,
You're
but
the facilitator.
your name is always on my list.
Yeah.
So.
My name's been on your list for a long time, Lisa.
All right. So future meetings. We got some good news. In the face of the bad news, we did get a note from DWR that they were going to be providing some additional facilitation support, which is fantastic because that means that Atlee can keep working with the Domestic Well Advisory Group. So, with that being the case, that'll probably, Atlee, do you have a sense of when that group may convene again?
I don't off the top of my head.
So, we'll go ahead and get a note out to the group. But that was super good news because that, just having that little bit of extra help, I don't want to speak for John, but I know, having a little bit of extra help with that, it is really, a great thing. And as far as I know, now's the time for the group to speak up, but I think you all appreciate having Atlee helping you with that. So, we'll go ahead and plan on that. Your executive committee, excuse me, your next scheduled meeting, you meet twice a year. You can meet more often if you want. This is something that's done at your discretion, but you have two standing meetings. One of them is the meeting that you have before the submission of the annual report. The other one is your late fall meeting where typically you go over, and this did happen in your last meeting. You went over that water balances report and kind of the main things that you thought would be going into the annual report. You received that, as well as talk about your budget and that type of thing. So that would be scheduled for late fall. We'll just kind of check with everybody's schedules to find out about that. Then you do have your continuous GSA meetings, and those are things for which guidance can be offered. You also have the schedule now for kind of and there are things that are going to be starting to happen in the phase 1 and phase 2 preparation of the GSP. What are we calling it now, John? Not the update, but the
evaluation.
Evaluation.
Yeah.
Okay. So that will be something probably that will be coming back to the GSAs for kind of ongoing communication. So that will be, I think, for the GSA managers meet somewhat regularly. They meet about twice a month. Those are working meetings where everybody's just kind of sharing information and keeping the trains running. And then they should be checking back in with their GSAs, bringing information back, but that is serving as a coordination function. That same group is also meeting with the other subbasins, the adjacent subbasins, and that is also a DWR requirement. So that is something that's happening in particular with North American. In fact, Trevor attended the last managers meeting. Barbara?
I'd just like to ask that executive committee meeting be scheduled in a way that we can hear definitively what the interconnected surface water guidance means to us and the schedule and the budget. So, that will, hopefully I don't know what late summer means necessarily as far as date and then late fall, but it would be good to make sure that that's a focus of the next meeting, that we understand what the guidance means for us.
Okay. Dominic, I know DWR is usually pretty flexible about coming out and doing a special presentation if we wanted to do a briefing or a workshop. Is that something that you could help us organize?
Yeah, I can definitely help organize that.
Okay. What do you think about that, Barbara? Because we could do a focus meeting just on that.
Yeah, if it relates specifically to our basin and our situation with our monitoring system, rather than I don't know that we need a high level regurgitation of the paper. I think we need to be focused on what it means for the South American Subbasin in terms of schedule and money.
Great, thank you. All right, anybody else on this topic, meetings or future ways? And there has been a lot of discussion about the importance of the outreach. I think the Domestic Well Advisory Group has been an important piece of that. So anything else on that particular topic? And if not, I'm going to go ahead and move to kind of the round robin for the group. I do have public comment available on the agenda, but we have been taking questions and comments throughout the meeting. So unless someone has something they would like to bring up during the public comment piece, I'll go ahead and move into the round robin. All right. So let's go up here to our group. Let's go ahead then. Eric, do you want to start with the round robin?
Sure. Our board met February 13th and authorized staff to pursue the next 5-year Proposition 218 efforts to continue providing funding for the sustainability of the subbasin. And we're also working in the Sloughhouse Subbasin, had an opportunity to review their draft annual update, very similar to ours here in the South American Subbasin, and things look fundamentally sound. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. Let me go to Mark Streeter.
Okay, we met on the 19th of this month. We had our informational meeting with John Woodling regarding the overall, what was going to be submitted here on the final report. As Mike has been discussing, we're still actively involved in trying to get some things rolling relative to the operations on the Consumnes River. We're looking at a potential expansion of our area to include some of the what do I call it, ag lands, I guess, in the lower portion of the Sacramento Basin there. That's looking to be a rather extensive, about 3-year process to basically incorporate that area. The concern, I guess, at camp and why we're looking at this is that the ag people down there felt that the Sacramento area, South American side of the world there, is predominantly urbanized, and that they feel a little bit left out, and so they had come to us and we're talking about basically seeing if they could annex into our area, because we are primarily ag and ag res type of community. And so we've started the process of looking into it. And like I say, it's going to be somewhat of an involved process, but my understanding is that we do have, although there was a little bit of resistance the other day, I guess, from the Sloughhouse board, or at least there appeared to be a little bit of concern there on their part. Everybody else seems to be pretty much in agreement that this probably would be an easier way of dealing with the differences between the ag community and the urban community, and giving us a little more balance there. But like I say, it's going to be about a 3-year process, it sounds like. So we're in the final or fairly early steps of that. That's about all I can report right at the moment I can think of. John, Mike, have you got anything else?
No, just like I reported earlier, the EcoFit project is still moving forward, which has been a big thing. Also, too, we did do some groundwater recharge this year. We ran the Rooney property for over 45 days because just how the river ran. So we had some good recharge happening over there. We'll have some final numbers coming up here in the next 30 days, which we have to report for our permit process. So yeah, we're still keep moving forward. I know that just on the Rooney property alone, we probably put over 150 acre feet there on the Rooney property, and probably double that over on the Tykert property. So just need more pumps to put more on at any given time. So that's about it.
Great, thank you. Herb, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, first of all, my apologies for showing up late. And so I've just been listening and I'm trying to just digest what was said today. Maybe Brittany can, put a little bit out there from our perspective. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Brittany.
Yeah, thanks for, I don't have a ton to say at the moment. John was at our meeting to discuss the annual report, and that went great. I think the Sloughhouse will have to discuss further our GSP implementation. And I apologize. I'm still trying to take everything in and learn it all. So I personally don't have any comments at the moment, but I think this has been a wonderful meeting.
Great. Thank you, Brittany. Let's go ahead then. Dahlia, do you have anything that you'd like to put in the mix?
Yeah, I can start, and then we'll see Bruce and John want to weigh in as well. I would say for the SCGA, we're focused on putting kind of a work plan together with an action plan for the year based on the SIGMA implementation in the annual report. And then we're also, there's a bit of governance changes for us because we do have to separate our financials from Sacramento County. So that's going to take us some time to figure out and put that into place. So that would be the highest priorities for us currently. But Bruce and John, you want to add anything?
Bruce, do you want to add anything? How about you, Barbara?
No, as John said, we weren't able to have a quorum at the last meeting, so we have a few things that are undone, but hopefully we'll correct that problem with representation at the next meeting. So we've had good substantial discussions at the meetings, and I think they're going pretty well.
Yeah, and I do want to note, Bruce was here, but he did drop off. He just left a few minutes ago. John?
Yeah, I'll divulge that Paul called me Friday and asked if, since he was on vacation, he could miss this meeting, and I gave him approval to miss this. But yeah, as Dahlia said, we've got a lot of governance, finance, internal things going on. Beyond the whole SIGMA implementation and groundwater management that's keeping SCGA busy. I think I'm coming up on 4 years. It'll probably be 4 years in May, and I was brought on to be interim executive director. So we've been in some continuous flux since then as an organization, and we're hoping for some stability going forward.
Thank you, John. Chris, do you have any updates?
No, only small thing I'd add, since we're talking about some consolidation efforts. There's county would greatly appreciate absorption of its very, 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 very tiny presence in the South American Subbasin into the greater SCGA group. We're looking into that. And then if my coworker is still on the line, Austin, he threw something into the chat that I think is kind of cool if folks have an opportunity to come out to ECOS's meeting tonight.
Great, thank you. All right, let me open this up then to anybody else on the line if you have anything you'd like to add to the closing comments or the round robin. Okay. And
Hey, Lisa, I didn't have anything if you had asked because perception's a little off and on. So
okay.
It's Todd.
All right, thanks, Todd. Thanks for hanging in there with the uncooperative audio. So, anybody else? We don't want to cut anybody off. All right. In that case, I think, as promised, that we will be able to end a little bit early. John, do you have any executive comments that you'd like to make? All right, well, we'll hear him.
No, I'm good. Thanks everyone for being here.
Hearing none. All right, thanks so much, everybody. We did record this meeting. As you know, Atlee does fantastic notes, so we'll be able to get those back out. And Mark Streetus, go ahead.
Just one question. I was looking at the chat. I was wondering what time that meeting is tonight with ECOS.
Austin?
Anybody know?
That's at 6 p.m.
At 6? Okay, thank you very much.
And it is available on Zoom, is my understanding.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at, and I was wondering what time it started.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's available. It's available on Zoom, and myself and Melinda Frost Hartzell is going to give a presentation on what we're doing on the OHWD side, and then she's going to talk about what partnerships we're doing with Consumnes Coalition and stuff along with Consumnes.
Great. Okay, well, in that case, I will give all of you 13 extra minutes back well, it's 12 extra minutes back in your day. So have a great rest of your day. Thank you everyone for participating.
Thanks, folks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.